Hello, my name is Allison Quigley, and this is my presentation for how I create a culturally responsive learning environment in my classroom. In this first section, I describe the contextual features of my classroom. Part 1, Student Profiles. The class being described is a Spanish 2 honors course at Unionville High School, which is a part of the Unionville-Chadds Ford School District located in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. The class has 18 students, 8 of which are male and 10 of which are female. Students are between the ages of 14 and 17 and are in grades 9 through 11. 14 of the students are Caucasian and 4 of the students are Asian American. Most of the students were born and have lived their entire lives in the United States. However, 2 students moved to Kennett Square from China and South Korea, and 1 student has lived all over the world as his father has had to move frequently for his job. The students have decided to take honors level Spanish because they are interested in learning the language. Outside of Spanish, the students have very diverse interests. A few students are very talented artists. Several are members of the track and field team. 1 student makes her own clothes and is very interested in fashion. Still other students are involved in football, soccer, the crew team, and volleyball. There are also students who play instruments, sing in the chorus, and participate in the school's plays and musicals. All students have rigorous school schedules and are part of the academically talented program for gifted and talented students at Unionville High School. Part 2. Provide an explanation on the practice of designing instruction for various learners. As previously stated, most of the students in this particular class are Caucasian. However, a few students are Asian American, and I make sure to utilize culturally appropriate strategies in my lessons. For example, it is common for Asian American students to remain quiet in class out of respect for their teachers and are hesitant to share their opinions. Chiang 2000. Because of this, I make it a point to show my students that I value their opinions and truly want to hear what they have to say in class. I encourage participation from all students and provide positive feedback, as some Asian American students may not receive much positive reinforcement at home. Chiang 2000. I also include my students' parents by sending home emails and newsletters with good news, as familial accomplishments are often a source of pride in Asian American families. Chiang 2000. Also, since it is important for both majority and minority students to study other cultures, Day Vines, Patton, Queck, and Wood 2009, studying the practices and products of Spanish and Hispanic cultures provides my students with opportunities to learn about those who are different from themselves and to have open, honest, and respectful discussions about culture. Furthermore, as we study a different language and different cultures in my class on a daily basis, this provides my students the opportunity to explore cultures that differ from their own and to discuss their cultures in relation to what we study. Day Vines et al. 2009. Part 3. How are different types of learning styles and interests identified, accommodated, and enhanced? At the very beginning of the school year, I have my students complete an interest survey that provides me with valuable information about their learning styles, preferences, specific needs, and interests. From there, I make it a priority to incorporate activities that address the different learning styles and interests of my students. My students have diverse learning needs and preferences, and I believe it is important to include a wide variety of activities so that all students are likely to have one that is most beneficial to them. I assign a variety of whole group, small group, partner, and individual activities that appeal to various learning styles and address individual learning needs. I also provide students with different options or ways of expressing their learning. This gives students the opportunity to pursue an interest that relates to the curriculum and to showcase their learning in a way that is most suitable to them. I strive to ensure that my teaching practices are as student-centered as possible. Part 4. How does asynchronous learning affect social and emotional well-being? When teaching gifted students, educators must be aware of how asynchronous learning can affect social and emotional well-being. Gifted students who experience asynchronous or uneven growth may not be the same age emotionally or socially as they are intellectually. Gorse, 2005. Because of this, gifted students may feel and act in ways that are misunderstood or perceived as negative by peers, parents, and teachers, and gifted students can feel isolated from those around them. Ferguson, 2007. Additionally, gifted students may have different interests and beliefs than their non-gifted peers, furthering this sense of isolation. Gorse, 2005. Gifted students are often aware of the differences between themselves and their classmates and may be unable to cope and/or function as a result. Gorse, 2005. Affective education and social-emotional development is, therefore, a crucial component of the curriculum when teaching gifted and talented students. Helping validate gifted students' feelings and teaching them appropriate and productive ways to interact socially and to channel their emotions is highly beneficial for their well-being. Ferguson, 2007. In the second section, I describe the learning spaces. Part 1. Show or explain how the physical environment, space, is set up to promote meaningful and rigorous learning activities. According to Dr. Tracy Riley, it is important to physically arrange a classroom in a way that students of all backgrounds and cultures will find comfortable and inviting. 2000. I believe that by setting up my classroom in this way, I am setting the tone for rigorous academic experiences that will take place in a welcoming environment. My classroom has a carpet, which was placed there originally to accommodate a student with hearing loss, but has served to make the room seem more attractive and less stark and clinical. While there are individual student desks, students are often allowed to move their seats or use the beanbag chairs that I have stored in my cabinets if they choose to do so during independent work time. The room is decorated with posters, streamers, and authentic decorations from various Spanish-speaking countries, which also aids in giving the room a more homey feel. All of these characteristics are aligned with Riley's recommendations for creating an environment that is physically conducive to learning. 2000. Part 1A. What resources and materials are available to enable learners to research real-world relevant tasks? In an honors-level language class, students at Unionville High School participate in a variety of rigorous learning tasks that relate to the real world. Unionville has a partner high school in Spain, and students in honors courses receive a pen pal from our Spanish sister school at the beginning of the school year. Throughout the year, students write messages to each other using a preferred method of communication, such as writing letters and sending them through the mail, writing emails, or using social media. Not only does this provide the students with an authentic experience in which to practice the language, students also get to learn more about culture than could be taught in any other way. Additionally, this provides the opportunity to practice positive social interactions and etiquette, be it in writing, an email, or on social media. The husband of one of my colleagues is from Paraguay, and he visits Spanish classes at Unionville High School about once per marking period. Students participate in whole group and small group conversations with him about language and culture. This allows students to compare cultural and linguistic differences between Spain and Paraguay as well. We also study authentic language and culture through music, art, film, and literature. I select songs, paintings, movies, and short stories, plays, and poems that relate to the curriculum, my students' interests, and are appropriate for my students on social and emotional levels. Some of these are studied by all students in the class, and at other times, students choose something that interests them to research and about which to complete an assignment. Additionally, students participate in debates, presentations, and simulated conversations that not only practice the language, but allow students to practice presentational and conversational skills that will be useful in the classroom and beyond. For example, students are required to dress neatly when giving presentations. Doing so for in-class presentations will show students that this is important, and hopefully they will remember to dress nicely in similar situations in college and/or at work. Part 2. Show or explain how the classroom space is comfortable, inviting for exploration and interest, and the personal construction of knowledge and differentiated instruction. My classroom incorporates Parker Palmer's 6 Paradoxes for School Design, Design Share 2015. The first paradox is Bounded but Open, Design Share 2015. While my classroom is an open space in which students are allowed to explore their interests and preferred learning styles, I provide students with certain limits and focuses. For most major assignments, students are given choices as to how they would like to complete them. I routinely use strategies such as think-tac-toe and tiered assignments to allow students to choose how they would like to show their knowledge. However, while students have a lot of freedom and choice, there are certain requirements that must be met. All assignments and projects must pertain to the curriculum and so must be related to the vocabulary and grammar points being studied. The second paradox is Hospitable and Charged, Design Share 2015. At the beginning of the school year, I work hard to create an atmosphere that my students will find warm and welcoming. This premise is also aligned with Barbara Clark's characteristics of a responsive learning environment, 1988. I get to know my students as individuals and learn about their interests and learning styles. I strive to maintain this environment throughout the year. However, while I am friendly and approachable, I make sure that my students are on task during class time and help my students explore their chosen topics and assignments in greater depth to maximize learning. Design Share 2015. The third paradox is Inviting the voice of the individual and the voice of the group. Design Share 2015. I make it clear at the beginning of the year that we are all to be respectful of the opinions of others, even if we disagree. Responding to others must be done in a polite way that respects all members of the class. This is in accordance with Clark's idea of creating a trusting, accepting, and respectful classroom environment, 1988. In class, we often have large group discussions about cultural issues and current events in Spanish-speaking countries. The controversial issue of Mexican immigration into the United States is a topic that recurs year after year. After conducting research, students are invited to present their opinions either individually or in pairs or small groups. Students are also given the opportunity to choose another issue of interest that pertains to a Spanish-speaking country, research it, and present their opinions to each other. This choice allows students to choose a topic about which they feel passionately. Design Share 2015. The fourth paradox is Honoring the little stories of those involved and the big stories of the disciplines and traditions. Design Share 2015. In an honors level language class, students are frequently writing or talking about their life experiences, using the vocabulary and grammar being studied at the time. Students often read or listen to their classmates' experiences, providing the opportunity to compare with others. Also, as we continually study the lives of people living in Spanish-speaking countries, students are able to see how their experiences are similar and different from other people across the globe. The fifth paradox is Supporting Solitude and Surrounding It with the Resources of Community. Design Share 2015. In my class, I assign a variety of whole group, small group, partner, and individual activities that appeal to various learning styles and address individual learning needs, which is also one of Barbara Clark's recommendations for a responsive learning environment, 1988. Students are able to work alone when needed, but also work in pairs or small groups at other times. Sometimes, students get to choose whichever option they prefer. The combination of different types of student pairings not only reinforces the topics being studied, but meets students' different needs according to this paradox. Design Share 2015. The sixth paradox is Welcoming both silence and speech. Design Share 2015. Reflection is important to learning, and so students are given time to process new information and to think when they receive feedback on assignments and assessments. Once students have this time to reflect silently, however, there are concrete assignments that they must complete to help reinforce understanding of the input they received. By incorporating Parker's 6 Paradoxes for School Design into my classroom, students are able to engage in the meaningful activities that were previously mentioned in this section. Design Share 2015. In this third section, I discuss my students' social development. Part 1. Show or explain practices and strategies used to promote and encourage active participation in individual and group activities to enhance independence, interdependence, and positive peer relationships. Social development is an important component of teaching gifted and talented students. In my classroom, I strive to foster positive peer relationships as well as to help my students develop their independence and interdependence. I believe that these are closely related. I utilize cooperative learning groups frequently in my classroom. In cooperative learning groups, students work together with a vested interest in each other's learning as well as their own. Johnson & Johnson, 1994. In other words, each student's success is dependent upon the successes of other group members. Some strategies that I utilize in these cooperative learning groups include jigsaws and student-led reciprocal teaching, Frey, Fisher, and Everlove, 2009. A jigsaw is an activity in which a large or complex assignment is broken into parts, and each member of the group is responsible for a portion of the assignment and ensuring that the other members of the group understand. Frey et al., 2009. At the beginning of the assignment, students are placed in one group, and students work together to make sure that everyone in the group understands and completes the portion of the assignment that they were given. The goal is that students become experts on their parts of the assignment. Then, new groups are formed. Each new group contains one member from the first set of groups, so that there is one expert for each part of the assignment. The experts share their knowledge with their new groups. Jigsaw activities promote interdependence because, since the success of the students depends on all members of the group, all students learn that they must help and support one another for the good of everyone. Frey et al., 2009. This also promotes positive peer relationships. Students learn quickly that when their success is dependent on the contributions of others, they must be helpful and supportive, as negative social interactions will prove to be detrimental to both individuals and the group as a whole. Frey et al., 2009. I use jigsaw activities with more complex grammatical concepts and with literature. I also use student-led reciprocal teaching with reading activities. With student-led reciprocal teaching, each student in a group is given a role: the questioner, the clarifier, the predictor, and the summarizer. Frey et al., 2009. Each student has a set of activities that he or she must facilitate within the group, and so each person plays an important role in ensuring that all group members comprehend the passage. It is imperative that all students participate in these group activities so that everyone can benefit. Frey et al., 2009. Since students depend on other group members for their success, these kinds of activities encourage interdependence and positive peer relationships. By participating in activities that foster interdependence and cooperative learning, students learn valuable skills that will serve them well when the time comes for them to work independently. For example, once students have practiced taking on all the roles in student-led reciprocal teaching groups, they will feel comfortable with and skilled in completing the tasks assigned to each role. They will then be able to use these skills when they are reading passages individually, thus better enabling them to understand what they read. In learning through interdependence, students are better equipped to handle similar tasks when they are faced with them alone. I also promote independence by allowing students to take ownership of their learning and assignments. At the end of each unit, students complete a project of their choosing that demonstrates what they have learned. Students are responsible for designing these projects with my support and assistance. In so doing, students develop leadership skills and a sense of independence. Carnes and Bean, 1990. This gives students the opportunity to formulate their own opinions and learn how to express them eloquently and respectfully, which, in turn, encourages positive social interactions with peers. Carnes and Bean, 1990. Part 2. Show or explain how the physical environment is arranged to engage students in a variety of instructional groupings and flexible grouping is used. In my classroom, the desks are arranged to form a U. At the opening of the U is the smartboard surrounded by two whiteboards. No matter where students are seated, they can see both of these and they can see me as well. Students can also see one another, which is very useful in facilitating large group discussions. However, when it is time to work in small groups, in pairs, or independently, the desks forming the U can be moved easily to create setups that are more conducive to the individual activity at hand. Also, if students feel that the desks are uncomfortable, I keep a set of beanbag chairs in my largest closet, and students are welcome to sit on those to work instead. Fortunately, my classroom is large enough to have sufficient space to comfortably fit 25 student desks and an arrangement of beanbag chairs. Since the physical space of my classroom can be arranged and rearranged as needed for specific activities, it is that much easier to employ flexible grouping. During a class period, it is likely that many different kinds of grouping will be used. For example, whole group instruction will be utilized if a new concept is being introduced. Pair or individual work usually follows introduction of a new concept to make sure that all students thoroughly understand the new topic. Then, once students are more comfortable, we complete small group activities that incorporate higher order thinking skills such as analysis and synthesis to further understanding of the new concepts and skills. Teacher vision, no date. Finally, at the end of learning new material, students complete assignments of their choosing to showcase their learning, and this can be done in pairs, small groups, or individually. The physical layout of my classroom helps make such grouping options possible. In this fourth section, I discuss the development of my students' social and cross-cultural skills. Part 1. Show or explain ways that students interact effectively with others. In my class, students learn to interact effectively with others. At the beginning of the school year, I establish an environment of mutual respect and tolerance in my classroom that helps to promote positive, productive social interactions. I show respect for my students by providing a welcoming, safe, and fair learning environment for all. By doing so, I show my students how they are expected to treat each other in turn. I also do not tolerate name-calling, bullying, using any offensive terms, or excluding students who wish to be part of a group. Any such instances are handled promptly. This environment sets the tone for effective and mutually beneficial collaboration among students, as they do not need to worry about negative social interactions. This allows students to feel more comfortable and to take the risks that are necessary for their growth and development. In addition, I utilize positive psychology techniques in my classroom, which help to create a completely positive environment. This opens the door for students to have completely positive social interactions with each other and with me. Positive psychology techniques teach students to focus on their strengths, abilities, and/or talents, and not to dwell on the negative. Olenchak, 2009. As the name suggests, positive psychology also strives to help individuals think more positively about themselves, their circumstances, and their surroundings. Olenchak, 2009. Students are given assignments in which they must describe and share a positive experience that they have had recently with one another. This gives students the opportunity to practice their interpersonal skills and to show empathy. Hebert and Neumeister, 2002. Also, students complete positive thinking surveys about an assigned partner from the class. These surveys ask students to complete statements such as, "My partner is really good at," and "my partner's best personality trait is." Then, students share what they wrote with one another. Hearing another person's opinions on strengths and talents can provide a new perspective and inspire confidence and emotional well-being. Seligman, Ernst, Gilham, Rivich, and Lincolns, 2009. This also promotes positive relationships among students, which paves the way for effective interactions in other class activities. I also help my students learn to interact effectively with others by employing instructional strategies that require students to learn to work well together. I use flexible grouping in my classroom, and students are frequently placed in cooperative learning groups to complete activities that require the same high level of participation from all group members. In order to be successful, students learn that they must work together and rely on one another to adequately complete the task at hand. The result of not working well together is that learning and class performance are negatively affected. Frey et al., 2009. The students do not want to see this happen. Furthermore, as the groups change often, students learn to work with all other students in the class, teaching them flexibility and how to work with students who may be different from themselves. Using cooperative learning groups also holds each student accountable for his or her portion of the assignment and ensures that all students are attentive to the tasks at hand. Cooperative learning groups encourage students to remind their group members of the importance of being attentive and accountable, as the success of the whole group is at stake. Receiving reinforcement from both the teacher and classmates motivates students to stay on task. To help my students acquire and develop leadership skills, service learning is incorporated into the course. In honors level Spanish courses at Unionville High School, it is expected that students practice their language skills and better the community by participating in projects that benefit the Spanish-speaking population of Kennett Square, of which there is a large number. Students are allowed to choose their service learning projects, although the ideas need to be approved by me at the beginning of the year. Popular projects include tutoring English language learners in mathematics and English language arts at one of the elementary schools in the district, and volunteering with an organization that prepares Spanish-speaking adults to take the United States citizenship test and/or GED. In choosing a way to help the community that incorporates their interests or passions, students are developing their leadership skills as they must take responsibility for coming up with a plan and putting it into action. Lewis, 1996. Part 2. Show or explain strategies and practices that support students with gifts and talents to be open-minded to different ideas and values, leveraging social and cultural differences to create new ideas and increase innovation, promote creativity, and produce quality work. In my classroom, I encourage my students to be open-minded to different ideas and values and to appreciate social and cultural differences. Studies indicate that open-mindedness is tied to well-developed critical thinking and reasoning skills, Stapleton, 2014, and I strive to cultivate these in my students. Critical reasoning involves the ability to see all sides of an argument, even ideas with which we disagree, Stapleton, 2014. I help build critical reasoning skills by having my students engage in persuasive writing and debates. When discussing complex social and cultural issues pertaining to Spanish-speaking countries, students are asked to write a short persuasive essay explaining and supporting their opinions. However, the assignment does not stop there. Students discuss their opinions in class and, after listening to what everyone has to say, students write another short persuasive essay on the same topic, taking the opposite point of view. Students know that they do not need to agree with their second version, but they need to be able to identify and recognize the merits and valid points of the opposite side of the issue. This helps my students to be open-minded, as being able to judge an issue in this way is what open-mindedness is all about. Stapleton, 2014. Additionally, when having whole group discussions, I sometimes play the role of devil's advocate to encourage students to examine an issue or problem from someone else's point of view. If time permits, we will also listen to or read the opinions of native Spanish speakers on these issues. For example, when we study Mexican immigration into the United States, we read news articles from Mexican newspapers and magazines that discuss this issue, and watch news footage from Mexican television stations. This gives students a new perspective that they are unlikely to have explored up until that point, and will help them better understand this complex socio-political issue and to keep an open mind to all facets of it. Cultural study and comparison is a staple in an honors-level language class at Unionville High School. In each unit, we study practices and perspectives of Spanish and Hispanic cultures, and students make cultural comparisons between their cultures and the one being studied. Sometimes the comparisons are simple, such as, in my house, we eat dinner at 7:30 p.m. and it is the biggest meal of the day. In Spain, people eat dinner around 10 o'clock p.m. and it is a smaller meal, as lunch is typically the largest meal of the day in Spain. However, in other situations, the comparisons are more complex and detailed. For example, we study los desaparecidos, or the disappeared ones, people who vanished from their homes in the night following the military takeover of the Argentine government in the early 1980s, many of whom were never seen or heard from again. Now it is known that los desaparecidos were often tortured, and those who died or were executed were buried in mass unmarked graves. It was a time of quiet fear in Argentina, and students are asked to describe how their own lives would be different if they were being faced with such social and political tension. This gives students a new appreciation for what the Argentine people experienced in the early 1980s and helps them to understand certain practices of the country, such as the human rights organization Las Madres de la Plaza de Mayo, which worked for 30 years to help uncover the fates of los desaparecidos. Students also use cultural differences to brainstorm new ideas and proposals. For example, our school district is currently considering the adoption of a new school schedule, which would open the high school at a later time. Students are given an assignment in which they must design a proposal of their own for this new school schedule, in which they consider the practices of a Spanish-speaking country. For example, in most schools in Spain, students have a large break at midday in which they go home and eat lunch with their families and relax for a while before returning to school around 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The school day then does not end until around 5 o'clock p.m. Students may choose to incorporate aspects of the Spanish school system into their proposals, citing the benefits. Conversely, if students disagree with the Spanish school system, they can include why they disagree and what options would be better. Whatever the end result may be, it is important that students examine other cultures, opinions, and viewpoints before drawing conclusions. Other cultures can offer effective solutions and ideas that students can incorporate to better their circumstances, and it is important to teach students how to examine them. Students use cultural knowledge to show creativity in my classroom as well. Students complete an assignment in which they choose a famous person from a Spanish-speaking country. This person could be an artist, author, musician, athlete, or politician, and can be living or deceased. Students create and present a product in the style of that person. For example, if a student is a talented artist, he could choose Pablo Picasso or Juan Miró and produce an original painting using the artist's style. A student who enjoys writing could choose an author such as Ricardo Palma and write an epilogue to La Camisa de Margarita, a work of literature that is studied in our class. This project allows students to explore a cultural aspect of a Spanish-speaking country that directly pertains to their interests and encourages creativity and the production of an original product that shows a deeper understanding of culture and ultimately the curriculum. Part 3. Show or explain strategies and practices that promote intercultural experiences that allow individuals with gifts and talents to appreciate their own and others' language and cultural heritage, to learn from working collaboratively with individuals from diverse cultures, religions, and lifestyles in a spirit of mutual respect and open dialogue in community settings. The nature of a world language classroom is such that opportunities for intercultural experiences are plentiful. I take full advantage of these opportunities to help my students develop and grow. By communicating with their pen pals in our partner school in Spain, students are able to learn about life in another part of the world and the practices and perspectives of Spanish culture. Additionally, while it is not a course requirement, students have the opportunity to participate in the exchange program that runs every other year with our partner school, and students can host a Spanish student in their homes and/or travel to Spain and spend 2 weeks experiencing Spanish culture firsthand. Many students, especially those who are interested enough to take an honors level course, participate in the exchange program. It is a wonderful way to help students learn about another culture, not to mention a fantastic way to practice using the Spanish language. Students also learn to appreciate other cultures by interacting with members of the community, such as my colleague's husband, who is from Paraguay and is often a guest to the Spanish classes at Unionville High School and teaches about culture and linguistic idiosyncrasies particular to Paraguay. Additionally, when students participate in their service learning projects, they are interacting with individuals from different backgrounds and cultures and communicating with them in their native language. A major assignment that students complete in Spanish 2 Honors is an independent research project on what life is like for a secondary school student in a Spanish-speaking country. Each student will select a different country and create a presentation about a typical day in the life of an adolescent there. Day Vines et al. 2009. Students will include information about family structures, values and beliefs, school systems, popular leisure activities, and clothing, as well as any issues that affect daily life in that region. This activity will help students appreciate similarities and differences between themselves and others, practice empathy, and possibly even feel motivated enough to take action to help with any problems in the countries that they studied. Day Vines et al., 2009. Part 4. Show or explain strategies and practices that teach individuals with gifts and talents how to develop habits to set and meet goals, prioritize, plan and manage work, acquire ethical leadership skills, guide and lead others fairly, consistently, and ethically, and develop habits to demonstrate integrity and ethical behaviors while adapting to different environments, global society. In Spanish 2 Honors, students are provided with a myriad of opportunities and experiences that will help them become productive members of the global society in which we live. As previously mentioned, students regularly communicate with individuals who live in another country and interact with people in the community who come from different backgrounds, have lived in other countries, and have a different native language. These activities develop students' communicative and collaborative competence, as well as leadership skills, which will all be crucial skills to have when students are entering the workforce one day. We also examine complex social and political issues in class that pertain to Spanish-speaking countries, such as the controversial issue of Mexican immigration into the United States. Students research this issue in depth and design a presentation that explains both sides of this issue and what the best ethical solution to the problem is, in their opinion. We also compare and contrast this issue to that of African immigration into Spain, which is as controversial there as Mexican immigration is in the United States. When comparing these two immigration issues, students must decide if the same solution could be and should be applied to both situations, taking ethical and cultural concerns into account. I assist my students in setting and achieving goals in Spanish 2 Honors. At the start of each marking period, I have a conference with each student privately in which we set academic and social-emotional goals. Students have a lot of assignments and are kept busy in an honors level class, and so I set aside time at the beginning of each week to meet with each student individually and briefly discuss his or her plan for completing all assignments. I also use this time to see if students are meeting the goals that were set at the beginning of the marking period and to check the students' progress on long-term or ongoing assignments, and I provide assistance as needed. In this 5th section, I discuss communication and language in the classroom. Part 1. Show or explain how you personally adjust your communication style to an individual's language proficiency and cultural and linguistic differences. My class is a bit different than most in that it is conducted entirely in Spanish. None of the students in this class are native or heritage Spanish speakers and have had, more or less, the same amount of exposure to the language prior to entering my class. However, as none of my students are fluent in the language in which the course is conducted, this presents certain challenges. As the teacher, I need to ensure that all input the students receive is comprehensible to them, and I must provide appropriate scaffolding as necessary with more difficult tasks. I incorporate the use of pictures and gestures to help my students understand the meanings of unfamiliar words. I speak slowly and enunciate clearly. Additionally, I give my students ample time to process what I have said before expecting a response. Some students are faster and better able to comprehend spoken Spanish and to respond appropriately, but for those who need more assistance, I repeat myself and/or rephrase as needed. Finally, I praise responses that are given in Spanish, even if they contain errors in vocabulary or grammar, as I want to encourage class participation and keep students feeling positively about using the language. As stated in earlier sections, the majority of the students in the class are Caucasian and native speakers of English. 4 students are Asian American, and 2 of these students were born and raised in the United States, but 2 were born in China and South Korea respectively. It is common for Asian Americans to rely on nonverbal cues and body language to express themselves rather than overtly stating their opinions. Huang, 1994. When communicating with these students, I am careful to watch for certain nonverbal cues. For example, smiling may indicate that a student does not understand or is embarrassed. Huang, 1994. If I see this, I check in with the student privately to see if everything is all right, and if not, we work it out together. Also, Asian American students are sometimes reluctant to offer answers or opinions in class, Chiang 2000. Because of this, I provide positive reinforcement for being outgoing and expressive, as this is something that may be outside of their comfort zones, Chiang 2000. Additionally, I am careful to alter my communication style when communicating with the parents of my Asian American students so that our encounters can be as productive and beneficial for the students as possible. In this sixth and final section, I discuss the continuum of services and collaboration. Part 1. Show or explain how you can collaborate with support personnel to meet the wide range of abilities and developmental needs of the students. To support my gifted students in Spanish 2 honors, I regularly provide feedback to the academically talented director about the students' strengths, areas of growth, and class performance. I attend GIEP meetings and ensure that my students' specific accommodations are being met in my classroom. Additionally, I collaborate with my colleagues and members of the community to help ensure that my students' needs are being addressed. I have several students who are gifted in the performing arts. I work with the teachers in the art and music theater departments, and we devise plans to see that our students' needs are met. For example, the last time the Spanish exchange program ran and the Spanish students were visiting, we organized a production of the Spanish language play La Casa de Bernarda Alba, and the main character was played by one of my students who is gifted in the performing arts. Students who are musically gifted have written original musical compositions in a style of music that is typical to a Spanish-speaking country, and the school orchestra performed the pieces at their concert. For my students who are gifted in a specific academic area, I work to connect the Spanish curriculum with the subject in which the student is gifted. I have a student who is gifted in science, and so one of his assignments was to design a plan for the ecological preservation of the species native to the Galapagos Islands, which was connected to his study of ecology in his science class. I help my students connect with community members who can aid students in the development of their language skills and their areas of giftedness. The area of Kennett Square has a large population of native Spanish speakers, and so there are numerous opportunities for students to connect their learning of the language with their gifts and passions. For example, my student who makes her own clothes put a presentation together about outfits that she made and did the presentations at 2 elementary schools and the middle school, all in Spanish. Students who are gifted in math or English language arts can volunteer with the organization La Comunidad Hispana, which, among other things, offers tutoring services to prepare native Spanish speakers in the community to take the GED. Once, a student who was a brilliant chef completed a project in which he spent time shadowing the head chef of a local Mexican restaurant who is originally from Mexico, and therefore was able to share knowledge and expertise about authentic Mexican cooking and, of course, the Spanish language. I provide my students with examples of how they can involve the community in their learning processes, and I also encourage my students to research how the community can help them further their knowledge, talents, and interests. Part 2. Show or explain how twice exceptional students' needs are met. As an educator of gifted students, I understand the importance of meeting the needs of twice exceptional students. I employ instructional strategies and techniques that have been shown to help twice exceptional students be successful. These techniques include ensuring that twice exceptional students have the necessary prior knowledge to complete a task or assignment, helping students understand why this prior knowledge is essential for a new topic, and allowing students to devise their own educational goals, progress monitoring systems, and evaluations. Coleman, 2005. Twice exceptional students can benefit greatly from the use of graphic organizers and other visual aids to help them see the connection between old concepts studied and new ones. Coleman, 2005. They may also require more time to complete tasks and assignments than gifted students who are not twice exceptional. Coleman, 2005. I am careful to keep this in mind when designing my instruction. I also strive to create a welcoming environment and to let my students know that I genuinely care about them, as twice exceptional students tend to be more successful in such environments. Coleman, 2005. The social-emotional development of twice exceptional students is important for them to thrive in school. Bracamonte, 2010. Teaching students how to work together and interact in positive, productive ways aids in development in this domain, and so the use of cooperative learning groups and positive psychology techniques are very beneficial for my twice exceptional students. Bracamonte, 2010. The use of assistive technologies can also be quite helpful for twice exceptional students. Bracamonte, 2010, and I make these readily available in my classroom. Examples of these assistive technologies include spell checkers and audiobooks for the literature that we read. Students are also allowed to record any instruction that I give using their cell phones. For students who are strong auditory learners but have trouble writing or spelling, this has been valuable. Bracamonte, 2010. Thank you very much for viewing my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.